listening to Season 1 of the Get Started podcast, the podcast show set to reveal fintech's brightest founders. We've kicked off with 9 fintech leaders recording live at Europe's biggest fintech show, Money2020. Stay tuned and email us at contact@getstarted.media if you'd like to feature. Hi, welcome to Chantal Swainston. She's the founder of The Herd, and we're on the final day. I have to double check, then check my counting. We're after midday on the final day of Money2020, and it's been a busy one, but I'm delighted to have Chantal here to wrap up our podcast recording, so welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I can't believe we're on day, as you said, after 12. I was like, oh God, it's absolutely flown by for day 3 of Money2020. But yeah, really pleased to be here.
Good. So can you kick us off then, please? Tell us a little bit about The Herd, the vision of the business, and I guess what you're setting out to do as founder.
Yeah, of course. So The Herd is the Women in Fintech and Financial Services spokesperson index, and it's a super simple idea. It's essentially a public list. We've now got 120 women listed on the site from all over the world, and they have their kind of short bios, the key topics for kind of public speaking opportunities that they want to do. So that could be anything from compliance to marketing. And then we also have their availability and best contact all listed on the site. It's completely free to be listed and it's completely free to access. And I'm really passionate about keeping it that way. I feel like it's the only way it's going to really solve the problem. And we're used by quite a lot of the kind of fintech journalists in the space, events organisers, and it just exists to help improve gender diversity in fintech media.
Wow. And how did you end up there? What led you to becoming a founder?
So I've worked in fintech PR for almost 10 years now, which is actually terrifying when I say it out loud. And I think I've had a lot of the similar experiences that I know other PRs have had, where when you're putting forward spokespeople or you're getting inbound opportunities, they can be really male-dominated and male-heavy, and would always try and work hard to put forward better, diverse spokespeople wherever possible. And I knew other people were doing the same. I know it's not something that I was doing exclusively. And I just thought there must be a better way to kind of centralise this publicly so that everyone can access it, so it becomes less about who you know and finding sort of the best person for the topic. So yeah, that's kind of how it came about. And we launched with just 13 speakers almost 2 years ago. And as I said before, we've got nearly, over 120, and we're constantly growing. So yeah, it's been a fun 2 years.
And just, I think what's interesting, because obviously we work in a similar space, is that you can find female speakers, and we've done it with our clients, but there is a little reluctancy sometimes, more so than on the male side. I don't want to be broad stroke with it.
It's true.
So I think what's interesting about what The Herd does is those women are bought in. They're expressing that they want to be considered for these types of speaking engagements, and that must help massively.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think to your point still, it's been an interesting experience for me, kind of working with some of these women, and they're brilliant and they've got such fantastic experiences, and they'll be selected by content producers because of, you know, their experience and their qualifications, and they still can be a little bit apprehensive. So I think, as much as I really hate talking about confidence for women, because I think it makes it really easy to blame women for the fact that they're not being represented, I think there is still a little bit of work that needs to be done to kind of encourage more women to take the spotlight, as uncomfortable as it may be.
Yeah, no, I agree. So a few fast facts then about the business. You mentioned that you've got 120 speakers, you're coming up for 2 years old.
Yep.
Whereabouts are you based? What geographies do you serve?
So I'm based in London. It was London-centric at the beginning when we launched, but we are now global. So we've got people from all over the world. We've got people from Asia, from the Americas. The footprint in the UK is probably still the strongest, but we're definitely looking to kind of add more people from Europe and America and Asia, just to make sure it's really as diverse as possible and accessible as possible. But yeah, and it's just me at the moment, so it's it's been a lot of work, but it's good fun, and also I've got the time now that I'm doing it full time. So
amazing. Yeah. Well, that's an achievement in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
To get it to the point where you can fully dedicate yourself to it.
Which is it's a scary step to take, but it's been good fun so far. So,
empowering, at least.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I guess that brings us to the part where we drill down a little bit further into what it's like to be a founder. And I know we discussed before we started recording that we're founders in fintech.
Yeah.
You may not be a fintech founder, but there's such an important ecosystem that exists around this huge fintech landscape that's developed over the last 10 years. And of course, you're one of those important founders that's creating something to support that and to improve it. So I wanted to talk about what it felt like. How did you know you were going to go, right, I'm in PR or I work in house, I work at a tech company. Was there a pivotal moment, a moment of passion, an opportunity that just arose for you to take that leap and, as you say, that become a full-time?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love there to have been a really pivotal moment that kind of was like a light switch for me, and I don't think there was. I've worked in PR and fintech for a long time, and I was at Wise for the last almost 4 years, and then before that I was in agency, so I had a bit of both. But I think it kind of, so I was looking after corporate communications for Wise, which was obviously a massive job after we'd gone public, and trying to balance doing that and the herd was a bit of a struggle. And it kind of just came down to circumstances, which probably isn't the most exciting answer, but I had the opportunity where, you know, I wasn't going to be making any, you know, hugely significant financial changes to my life within the next year.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I can't do it now, then I should never be able to do it. So I had to kind of take the leap in terms of timing, I guess, more than anything. So.
Well, that's one of the most important ingredients.
Yeah,
isn't it?
so true. Yeah, to be able to do it. So I went full time on it about, it's coming up 6 months ago actually. And yeah, it's been amazing. Loved it.
And in that time, has there been anything since that leap? Has there been anything where you feel like that was a defining moment? That was something where I knew we'd actually have done the right thing. This is something that I would like to now replicate, and I would like more of those moments.
Yeah, I think for me, the launch day was really exciting. So obviously, having done PR for lots of clients and stuff, it's you know the process, and you know kind of how to pitch yourself, and
it's nice to apply that to your own.
It was really exciting, and I think I didn't really expect to get much interest in it, because it was kind of like, it is a service in the industry, and I don't think a lot of the publications would pick it up, because it is kind of like trying to sell a little bit. But yeah, it did really well, and it was really exciting to kind of see things rolling through, and I think it was a big relief as well, because I was really passionate about it and I thought it was a good idea, but I'd only spoken at that point to like a handful of people, and I only had the 13 people listed on the site, so it was a real test of the water to see if people wanted it, if they thought it was a good idea, or if it was just going to fall flat. So the reception was really exciting, and I think just kind of validated that it is needed and a good idea, and that was a really exciting day as well. So yeah.
And have you started to see more? Sounds like a basic way to ask the question, but is it working? Are you starting to see those speakers filter through into more events, and you're starting to see the
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I'm trying to have a think about is, because it's free to access and free to use, we've not got a great system for like tracking, but every now and then I will see people, and there'll be an event, and I'll wonder whether or not they were found on the herd.
I think we should assume that.
Yeah, exactly. And I have had people kind of email me, which is the nicest bit, where they say, had this opportunity, you know, so and so said they found me on the herd, and I think that's always really nice.
Well, I have to admit, I reached out to two people from the herd for this podcast, and they just weren't at the show. Okay. But I was sure to say I saw you.
Oh, amazing.
On there, and they both replied.
Oh, fantastic.
But they just didn't happen to be here. But it does work.
The system works.
It does work, I have to say.
Yeah.
And I was definitely, when I saw the launch, I just thought, go on, Chantal. No, like I did think it's good that, you know, I was pleased. And I know we don't know each other that well, but I'm really passionate about the importance of, you know, the ecosystem that supports fintech.
Yeah,
we're just as important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people, you know, they don't get very well known if they've not got the marketing and PR support. So yeah.
So anything, I don't want to be too negative, but anything you've learned, any sort of lessons, any failures to date that you wouldn't want to replicate?
I think I'm lucky so far. I'm very aware that I think, you know, big things probably on the horizon. The challenges are on the way, I'm sure. But so far, I've been fairly fortunate in terms of kind of not having any significant knockbacks, touch wood. But I think one of the biggest challenges has definitely been it's a significant change in the work that I've done previously. I've always worked in PR, I've always worked in marketing, that's what I know. And now I'm having to kind of like almost be like a partnerships lead and a salesperson, and I also need to be making sure that the website's constantly compliant, and I'm speaking to the developers to keep it up to date, and you know, working on the blog and doing interviews, and it's kind of thrown me in at the deep end of a lot of things that I've not done before or not been as responsible for. And it's taken some of those skills have taken more time to master than others. So it's been an interesting journey.
Well, it seems like you're thriving.
Oh, thank you.
Why? I mean, again, sticking with the slightly negative set of questions for a minute. As either an observer or a service provider to the industry and a founder yourself, we've had a challenge, haven't we, in fintech? There's been, I guess, diversity issues. We've had funding issues, compliance issues. There's been businesses failing left, right, and centre. Why do you think that some businesses aren't thriving in the fintech space? You can answer that as a founder, you can answer that as a PR person. Why do you think the brand of fintech has taken a little bit of a hit?
I think there was so much enthusiasm around it right in the early stages, and we had the real poster children like your Monzos, your Wise, your Revolut, Klarna, all these kind of companies that have gone on to be successful in their own ways. And I think there was a lot of enthusiasm for businesses in the beginning, and naturally, because we're in financial services and regulation is incredibly tight, a lot of the focus in the media and the reporting, as it should be, is much more balanced, and it's poking and it's finding these issues, which I think is a really important part of the process. But I think it's also perhaps maybe some of these companies aren't anticipating to kind of get that grilling sometimes. And if they're not completely, ticking all the boxes, making sure everything's compliant, running good businesses, profitable, all this kind of stuff, then the wheels can come off quite quickly. And I think it's an incredibly competitive industry to be in as well.
No, I agree. I think it's the same. I think that word anticipation is really important. There was a lot of micro focusing, either fully focused on funding or perhaps pulling together everything that it takes to be successful. And I guess speaking of which, you've described a very, very positive start and warm reception to what you're doing with the herd. Are you where you want to be, and do you have a roadmap for what the next 12 months is going to be?
Yeah, see, I've got a lot of ideas, and I think one of the things I'm really looking forward to when I get back from Money2020 is kind of putting together what the next 6 months look like. So growing the index has been a huge focus, and making sure that we've got really strong content pipeline. But the other thing that I really want to start building out is also our services side of things. So we've run a couple of free media training sessions, which have been really popular. The last one we did at EY's offices in London Bridge, and we had like a full house, no dropouts, which I was really pleased with. So I think it's kind of creating more useful skill building as well as just having the index as well. So that's kind of the next step. But yeah, I do need to kind of sit down and work out what that next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months strategy is.
I mean, you're in an industry where you've got an opportunity to be responsive and add value with your skill set. I mean, obviously you look around at events like this, people are talking and sharing and converging more than ever, and they need to be able to do that in a meaningful way.
Yes, absolutely.
So in terms of what motivates you, you said you're like, write the theme tune, sing the theme tune, you're coming in, you're doing lots of different things now, and it is tiring. Yeah. And it's challenging and rewarding, but what motivates you to do that, to be a founder, to take the risks?
I guess it's kind of what motivates me in terms of the herd was I never really did that much public speaking for, I'd say, like the first 5 or 6 years of my career. I guess kind of you're building and you're a bit more junior, and also classic PR is always behind the scenes and very rarely in front of the camera. So, and that's fine and it's great. But I felt like once I started doing a bit more speaking, it helped me build my confidence. It helped me develop my personal brand, gave me a lot more opportunities. And I think I really want that for other people and other women and non-binary people in the industry as well. Like, I think it goes beyond just being like an ego thing to be stood on a stage. It's actually all of the opportunities that come with it, the skills, and kind of like the bigger impact it can have on your career. So that's kind of what really excites me about it. And I guess I just felt like this was the only way I could do it, really. So I had to go down the founder route. But yeah, it's been fascinating.
Well, I think I've spoken to 8 of the founders during Money2020, and the motivations have been different. Everything from, personal fulfillment of their potential through to, financial, through to problem solving and just becoming determined to solve this one issue. And I think doing something meaningful, like you are on purpose, where you can see there's like an issue and other people can benefit. Because I fully agree about speaking. It's something that's taken me a while to get into, and it's not the moment on the stage, it's the build up, the prep, the confidence. That's how I feel I benefit. So I can totally identify with what it is you're trying to do or are doing. In terms of themes and areas, I guess, that you think are important in the agenda for the next few years in fintech, and perhaps what some of your registrants, your speakers do, are there any big themes, big issues that you think are important to fintech and the wider world?
Yeah, it's kind of the top one for everyone that I speak to, but I think it's the regulation and compliance side of things. We also get a lot of inbounds for people to speak on compliance, and I think it's always a really difficult one because you can't overshare too much, especially if you're working for a big tech company. But I think making sure that we stay on the right side of a very regulated industry is a huge challenge for fintechs that are coming in, that maybe 10 or 15 years ago things were a little bit easier, but now you have to be doing everything absolutely right in order to get licenses and in order to be able to operate and onboard customers. And I think that's something that we're going to see more and more conversation around, especially as we talk about trust for consumers as well, which is just massive. So I think that's definitely something we're going to see a lot of. And then unsurprisingly at the event, it's been a lot on AI, which I think has been super interesting, and how that's being integrated. So yeah, I'd say those are probably two big themes.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that comes across where we are at the moment. And have you got any words of wisdom or any advice or anything that you like to communicate to sort of other people in the industry, perhaps also in-house, if they've got a vision or an idea to break out and to do something themselves?
Yeah, I think my approach was sort of ask for forgiveness, not permission. I think it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if you feel really passionately about something and you want to build it, just have a go and see how far you can get, and just go for it. Don't let the fear of people saying you can't do it hold you back. And like I think forgiveness, not permission, as much as possible, because I think sometimes especially if you're balancing two things, or you're launching something whilst you're working full time. I was lucky that Wise were really supportive of when I launched the Herd. I can't imagine what I would have done if they hadn't been, but
You just found a way.
Yeah, maybe I would have found a way, but I don't regret kind of just sort of turning up one day and kind of being like, oh, by the way, I've done this thing.
No. And just while we are here at sort of the biggest convergence of fintech in Europe, what do you think events like this bring? What do you think? Two questions. One, what's the value that they offer? And two, when is the right time for a fintech startup or a business to start investing in events like this? Because it's not cheap.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I mean, we're all pro Money2020, that's why we're here, but it is an investment.
It is an investment, you're right. And I think it's one of those where you do need to be able to have some sort of measure on ROI if you're going to spend money and invest time and have a stand or whatever it is that you're going to do. So I think in terms of the benefits, I think unsurprisingly, if you get everybody under one roof, the networking is amazing. There's so many different people you can speak to. And, literally just round the corner and upstairs, we've got JP Morgan, Google, Barclays, and then you've got, on the other side, you've got a bunch of tech companies, and it's a real mix. So I think that's kind of bringing everyone together is the huge benefit. I guess in terms of, what was the second question? Was it when's the right time?
Yeah, when, because, but I think it's quite clear when you look, I'm not answering the question for you.
No, you go for it.
But I think it's quite interesting, you can see the variety in terms of the size of presence. So it feels like there are a few more opportunities for entry levels of participation.
And you've got those startup lounges as well, where you've got lots of little sort of mini stands. I don't know if there's ever a right time. I think I would recommend that you've just got to do lots of research and work out who you're there to meet and whether or not the presence is the right time for you. Because whether you might be in the middle of fundraising, in which case I haven't actually met too many investors when I've been walking around, so I don't know if this would be the right place.
Well, there's been a few dinners and a few sort of invite only sort of meet and greets, and there's been some research from independent VCs walking around.
Interesting. So I guess it's just, and then it's like, and then obviously we're in the press lounge today. There's a couple of journalists here. I think it's working out what you're trying to get out of it, and whether or not that is worth the financial investment.
Yeah, and the time, like you say, if you're in full-time raise, then
very true. Especially if you're bringing your founders, which if you were early stage you would, then it's taking them away from something else that will be very important, I'm sure. So yeah.
Well, congratulations so far on what you've achieved in a short space of time. It really is incredible, and I know it's going to be, we're going to be watching you over the next 12 months and seeing how that develops. Have you got anybody that might be listening, or anybody that wants to sort of use the Herd? Is there any sort of ways they get in touch? How can they contact? They sign up?
Absolutely. So I've got my email address and a contact form on the website. So it's chantalfromtheherd@gmail.com. Didn't get the fancy Gmail for that one, and I'm stuck with it. And if you want to apply, we can just take a quick look at your kind of credentials, if you will, and then we'll send over an invitation with all of the information. But we're working to be as inclusive as possible. So it's worth doing if you want to do any sort of public speaking.
Well, amazing. Thank you. Thanks for talking us through the journey so far, and for joining us on the Get Started podcast.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Get Started podcast, the podcast show set to reveal fintech's brightest founders, brought to you by Communications House for Entrepreneurs, Started. To take part, email contact@getstarted.media or WhatsApp us on +44 7822 01 8863.